Just smile.
Thank you, and welcome to our special council meeting on June the 15th, 2021. The special council meetings are sometimes brought forward just to do the business of council. Could I ask the CEO to read the following statement?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All council meetings are filmed with both video and audio being recorded. Video is focused today on all of our screens, and audio is being recorded. The reason behind recording our council meetings is, of course, to hold us more accountable and improve the transparency of council decision making to our community. The full meeting is being streamed live on council's YouTube channel, which is Alpine Shire Council, and will also be available to you on YouTube shortly after this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Bird. The Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land we are now on, and we pay our respect to elders past and present. We also acknowledge those people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life from all. Now, tonight we have an apology from Councillor Prime, who is on leave of absence until July 2021. And we don't actually have congratulations and obituaries tonight, but I think it's pertinent to congratulate Kelly and Michael on the birth of their first child, Miss Sophie. So congratulations out there to Kelly. There are declarations by councillors and staff of conflict of interest. Now, this tonight is we're dealing with the budget and rating structure tonight. There are 3 conflicts involved here. Councillor Charlie Vincent has declared a conflict of interest with respect to item 5.1.1 and the submission made by Into Our Hands Foundation, Community Foundation, which is submission number 6. Introducing also our current Director of Commercial, Ms. Ruth Kneebone, who has declared a conflict of interest with respect to item number 5.1.1 and the submission made by Into Our Hands Foundation, Community Foundation, submission number 6, and also introducing our Director of Assets, Mr. Will Jeremy, who has declared a conflict of interest with respect to item number 5.1.11 and the submissions made by Mr. Will Jeremy, submission 7, Alpine Cycling Club, submission 5, and the Alpine Community Plantation, submissions 8 and 9. Now, as Ms. Kneebone and Mr. Jeremy are not voting tonight, they do not have to leave the room, but we will be asking Councillor Vincent to leave the room when this item comes up for voting. Thank you. Right, to the business tonight. Presentation of reports by officers. 5.1.1, submission of the draft 21-22 budget. Ms. Kneebone, thank you. And should Councillor Vincent leave at this point? Thank you, Mr. Bird, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you, sorry. Thank you, Ms. Kneebone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So at its April council meeting, council resolved to give public notice of the preparation of its draft 2021-22 budget and invited submissions. Submissions closed on Thursday, the 13th of May. 9 external submissions were received from the public, and council officers also made submissions based on changed circumstances since the budget preparation. Some submitters wished to be heard by council and they made their presentations to council on the 25th of May. Councillors and officers that declared a conflict of interest removed themselves from the briefing sessions where submissions were discussed. Some of the 9 external submissions are recommended to be adopted by council. Others are recommended to be referred to the community grants process, and others have been referred back to the submitter for further development. On page 8 of the council agenda, the response to submitter 5 requesting maintenance, a maintenance officer for Mystic Mountain Bike Park, the response from council should be changed to council recommends that Alpine Community Plantations be responsible for ongoing operational expenses. So that item will change in the recommendation in the minutes. The net impact of the submissions, which are recommended for incorporation into the budget tonight, is as follows. Carried forward capital works, $542,000. New capital works, $1,002,000. Carry forward operational expenditure, $5,000. Additional operating expenditure, $657,000. Additional grant income, $53,000, and additional rates, charges and other income of $67,000. And overall, the projected surplus is 6.6 million compared to the draft budget surplus of 7.2 million. The recommendation is that council considers the written and verbal submissions made on the draft budget and makes the recommendations following on the table attached to the recommendations. At item 2, at item 3, that council send the submitters the information back that they need to be further assessed or managed by the Alpine Shire Council. That table is included in the recommendation on page 3, and that council notifies in writing each person or persons who made a submission and the reasons for their decision.
Thank you. Could I have a mover and seconder for those 4 recommendations, please? Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. Seconder, Councillor Chalwell. Councillor Nicholas, do you have anything to add to this intro?
No, not really. Just to say, as usual, there's a lot of work goes in behind the budget, and it's well thought through. And congratulations. And I think it's a great budget. I do have some questions though, if I may. In the carry forward expenditure up on the page, my notes have covered it, page 3, there's a vehicle renewal item, $42,000. I just wondered whether the new vehicles will be hybrid or electric, low carbon vehicles, one or the other.
Mr. Jeremy, you have
I'm just going to
flick that one. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the vehicle that's being renewed is a works ute for our civil works crew. And we're replacing the vehicles which are the white fleet. We're replacing them with hybrid vehicles at the moment, as you're aware, and we've had discussions around whether we should be replacing into the future with electric vehicles. But with our works fleet, we're not aware at this stage of a practical option for replacing those vehicles other than with diesel engines that we've got at the moment. So we'll keep monitoring that space, and as technology develops, I'm sure that there'll be some options which come forward into the future.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy.
No other questions? Okay. Councillor Chalwell.
The only comment I have is that when it comes to the council budget and things like this, that, you know, each application and submission to it is definitely considered, discussed, and questions are asked. It's not something that we take lightly, and we want to, you know, do the best for what we can with what we've got. So, you know, we urge you to continue to put the ideas across, and if it's not included in something like this, then there are avenues to go down. So just to keep all of that in mind.
Thank you. Good comments. Any other councillor would like to make comment on this? No? Okay, it'll go to the vote. Those in favour of adopting those 4 recommendations? Thank you. That's been passed. Mr. Bird, would you like to allow Councillor Vincent back into the meeting, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll just reacquaint myself with how to place her back in. I think, and for the minutes, we should record that she left at 5:05 and returning at 5:11.
511, thank you. And just another housekeeping thing, please, if you've got your mobiles in front of you, could you just make sure they are on silent? Item 5.1.2, declaration of the Dinner Plain special rate. Again, thank you, Ms. Kneebone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At its April ordinary meeting, Council resolved to give notice of its intention to declare a special rate for the provision of services of special benefit to the Dinner Plain Village. Submissions closed, as they did for the budget, on the 13th of May, and one submission was received. Details of the submission and Council's response are provided in the report, and it is recommended that Council adopt the Dinner Plain special rate unchanged for the 2021-22 financial year. The recommendation is there for Council to consider.
Thank you. Could I have a mover for that, please? Again, Councillor Nicholas, and a seconder, Councillor Keeble. Thank you. Councillor Nicholas.
I don't have anything to add.
Councillor Keeble.
I think as read, it's really important, a special rate for Dinner Plain. It does provide services that are very specific to Dinner Plain, and we're always happy to support those specific needs that they need up in Dinner Plain. Hopefully the snow keeps falling and we keep using some of that money to clear and make and do all that sort of stuff.
Thank you. Any other comments by councillors regarding this? Straightforward. I'll put it to the vote then, please. All those in favour of those recommendations? Thank you very much. That's carried. Item 5.1.3, the adoption of the 21-22 budget. Ms. Kneebone, you're still on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to recommend to Council to adopt its budget 21-22, incorporating the rates and changes and amendments referred to in report 5.1.1 of this agenda. The budget projects an operating surplus of $6.6 million, incorporating a rate increase of 1.5% in accordance with Victoria's Fair Go rate system, which caps rates in line with inflation. The budget also includes capital expenditure totalling $15.5 million, which is the largest to date for this council, and reflects a planned program of asset renewal and upgrades supported by capital grants of $8.9 million. I will note that there are some minor amendments to the council's budget document to reflect those figures. The budget is also the first budget prepared by this council and under this new Local Government Act. So it's one of numerous firsts for council. The recommendation is there that council adopts its budget, declares the rates and charges and garbage and recycling charges, and that it allows for rates to be paid in 4 instalments and authorises the CEO to give public notice of adoption of the budget.
Thank you. Could I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Vincent, seconder, Councillor Janice. Thank you. Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to add that it's such a historic budget to see that, you know, over $15 million of grant funding, capital works, and just such a phenomenal outcome for our region that we'll see over many years to come. And yeah, well done to the officers involved in putting this together. And it sounds like such a big surplus, but an understanding that is committed money, but it is wonderful to be in such a sound financial position. Thank you.
Councillor Janice.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great, it is a great budget for our first budget. 15.5 million in capital works, best we've ever done. But in so saying, that means a lot of extra work for our staff going forward. It's not something that we'll be able to continue on a year-by-year basis, I don't believe, in the current circumstances. However, we have had some windfall, and thank you to the state and federal governments for that extra funding that's allowed these lines to happen. With any lot of capital works into the future, we've got to continue to consider the maintenance of all of that works, and that the cost of that maintenance has to be built into our budgets going forward. So I just want to put that out for the public to understand. We are doing very well, I believe, in our finances and managing those finances. I understand Councillor Nicholas's comment in relation to the electric vehicles, and we've had discussion amongst councillors, about those sorts of issues going forward, and it's something that we would probably be striving to into the future as it sees fit, and that puts another dynamic on the budget, or may not do. So, look, I thank the officers for putting the budget together. It is good. I also note that the people of Dinner Plain, although they have a special, perhaps I should have brought this up earlier, there is a special rate, so to speak. That rate that they're charged is the same as every other property or business in the Alpine Shire. So commercial rate is 143 and 100% on the others. It's the special works that happen up there that we have to declare that special rate for, that we don't normally wouldn't have down here. So that's about all I have. Thanks, Mr. Mayor, on that.
Thank you. Any other councillors would like to make comment on the adoption of this budget? Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The budget and the documents we're looking at tonight, and I don't know how many people are online, or we'll look at the minutes, but they are probably the single most important documents that we look at in regards to how what projects get done over the next 12 months, really. And, it's not just the next 12 months, it's, as people have said, it sets us up for years to come. And you have the capital works for the next 12 months. There's some major projects that are on the table to get finished and completed. And will be very exciting for our community to see those projects get completed. In recommendation 2, rates is always a funny thing for people. It's one of those things, no one likes paying the rates. It's a one-off bill you get, and you pay it 4 times a year or every fortnight, however you decide to pay it or not pay it. We hope that people pay it, don't we, Mr. CEO? But that one-off payment, we pay our taxes every fortnight when you get paid. If you're employed, you pay taxes to the governments, and that comes out of your wage every fortnight. People kind of forget that sometimes, that shires, this is some of the only ways some small shires like our shires can get income is through the rating process. It's not through other means at all. And when people see these rates, they see it at 1.5 rate increase. That doesn't mean that every property will be at 1.5. It changes, and there's documentation out there that shows how that sometimes works. And it's good, I think, that we have this 1.5 increase, and that's set by the local government across the whole of the state, rather than what it used to be, where some shires might have been 12% and some shires were 2% rate increases. I think it's horses for courses, but anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thanks to all the officers for all their work in putting this together. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. I concur. Yes, Councillor Nicholas.
Just following on from Councillor Keeble. So A question first. So currently we have rates being paid in 4 instalments. That doesn't stop anyone, this isn't a question because I do it, it doesn't stop anyone from paying in 1 instalment if they don't like looking at the bill 4 times, Tony. That's what I do. But it does say that it's in accordance with section 167 of the Local Government Act 1989. We now have a 2020 Local Government Act. So will that change, or does it continue? There's 4 instalments.
Well, I don't know whether the new Local Government Act will change that, but in my general understanding is that as long as you keep ahead of your instalments, you will be within the realms of what is expected of ratepayers. So yes, you can pay it 4 times, or you can pay it up front, or you can just pay it a little bit earlier. As long as you are ahead of your instalments, then that is all that's required.
Thank you, Ms. Kneebone. And my other question is around delivery of the rates notices and whether we are moving towards email or electronic delivery, or whether it'll remain postal. And I think that's
a question for the CEO, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can answer that one. Ideally, we would be able to issue all of our rates notices via email. It's a really efficient way. It requires less paper, less energy, all types of things. We need to have a system in place that allows us to do that. We are close to that, but we're not there yet. But we would really like to do that, and it'd be a very effective way of communicating with our community on a whole range of fronts.
excellent. Good to hear. Finally, I just wanted to remind people that there is in place financial hardship options if people are struggling to pay their rates. Get in touch with council and there's support there.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. Any other councillor like to make comment? No, thank you. I shall put this these recommendations to the vote, please. Those in favour? Thank you. We have that carried. Item 5.1.4, the revenue and rating plan. Again, thank you, Ms. Nebo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to recommend that Council adopts its draft revenue and rating plan. The preparation of this plan is a new requirement of the Local Government Act 2020. Its purpose is to plan the most appropriate and affordable revenue and rating approach for Council, taking into consideration all sources of income to finance the objectives in the Council plan. It outlines the principles and strategic framework that Council will use in calculating and distributing rates and other revenue streams. Council resolved to place its revenue and rating plan on public exhibition at its April meeting. No submissions have been received on that plan. The recommendation is that Council notes that no submissions were received, notes that some minor amendments have been made to update legislative references, that it adopts the Alpine Shire Council Revenue and Rating Plan and signs and seals the plan at the appropriate stage of the meeting.
Thank you. Could I have a mover for that one, please? Thank you, Councillor Chalwell, and a seconder, Councillor Nicholas. Councillor Chalwell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I mentioned last time this one came up, it's, you know, this was put out to the public and there were no submissions, as Ms. Kneebone just mentioned. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think that there is always discussions had around this area within council, probably most referencing the rating. And one of the discussions we've been having over the past couple of weeks is definitely around how the rating goes out to the properties and how it's distributed. And I think trying to get something out, hopefully to be able to explain it a bit better, is definitely something that's been in discussions. I do urge people to read these documents. I sat down, I read it, I questioned it, and things were, you know, things were amended accordingly to make it more appealing and read easier for people to understand. So this, I still, there's parts of it that I need explaining on occasion as well. And I think that as we have discussed, getting something out there that's going to explain this to everybody as to how it's done and why it's done the way it is, the more educated we are on it, the better the outcome and the better the discussions that we can have on it. So hopefully we can watch this space and get something out there that people will find easier to understand.
Plain English, is that what you're talking about?
Beg your pardon, sorry?
Plain English.
Yeah, pretty much. Like
Okay.
I said, there were parts of it that I read that I've just gone, whoa, okay, we need to reword this because I've read it 3 times and it didn't make sense. So definitely get it out there in plain English. This is what it is. This is how it's calculated and this is why.
Thank you. Very well said. Right, Councillor Nicholas.
I was wondering whether it should be a YouTube or podcast or something. You're going to do thoroughly modern. Anyway, this is another first. It's the first time Alpine Shire Council's prepared a revenue and rating plan, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know. Certainly one that's as thorough as this and explains the whole thinking and process and which way rating is achieved, whether it's cents in the dollar or some other value thing. And I agree with Katarina. It's a hefty wade through, but if people really want to know how rating works, it's worth reading. And well done again to the people who put it together.
Thank you. Any other comments from councillors? Yes, Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The revenue and rating plan is a live document that we can alter from time to time, or is it a set document for a set number of years?
I think it's able to be altered. As long as we've adopted it by a certain time, then we can amend it if we need to.
Yep. I thought that was the case, so I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Any other councillors have questions, comments? No, I'll put these 4 recommendations to the vote. Those in favour, please. Thank you. That one is carried as well. And we have one last thing, item 6, documents for sealing, which is the Alpine Shire Council Revenue and Rating Plan. Could I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Nicholas and Councillor Vincent. Thank you very much. Those in favour of that? Thank you very much. That has been carried. There being no further business at this special council meeting, I will declare the meeting closed at 5:28.